It has not been the best morning. So me and Freya had a little dance this morning and I dropped my camera. I've broke the shutter, so now I have no lens protector on my camera when my camera's turned off. So there's that. Luckily, still filming on the same camera and I think the quality's still okay. I don't think my lens is actually damaged at all, which I'm feeling very, very lucky about. But yeah, so I did that. And then I sat down to edit my June wrap up and discovered that I hate it. Here we are filming it again. Luckily, camera still works. So yeah, today we are going to be refilming. Today we're going to be talking my June wrap up. I've read 5 books, 4 of which were on my TBR for the month. So the only book that I didn't read off my June TBR was Lady of Darkness. Now I still really want to get to this book, but obviously it won't be a June read anymore. But I am really looking forward to this series. So I do want to read this soon just so I can get these read and then move on to the Legacy series. Still going to be reading this year, fingers crossed, but will not be in this wrap up. So yeah, so now we will talk about the books that I read in June. So I read 5 books, like I said, so let's get straight into those. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And as always, my social media, my Amazon wishlist, my Goodreads and my business email are all in the description bar below. The sun is reflecting off the white of the windowsill and into my face, so I'm like glowing more than usual. It's great. This is already going so well. The first book that I read in June was The Funny Story by Emily Henry. Now this is my first Emily Henry book and honestly I really enjoyed this. I've had so many people telling me that because I love the Abby Jimenez books, I'll love the Emily Henry books. Obviously I have only read 1, but I would still say that I prefer Abby Jimenez over Emily Henry. But we will see. Obviously this is only the first book I've ever read by her, so I do want to read some more. I have got like 4 books by this author, so hopefully as I read a few more I'll come to like her just as much. Daphne is engaged to a guy called Peter, and Peter basically just decides one day that like bumps into an old school friend and decides that he needs to be with her, so just leaves Daphne. They break up and that's that. Now Petra was dating a guy called Miles. It's really difficult to explain this book. So Peter and Petra are now dating. Petra is moving into Peter's home, therefore Daphne has nowhere to go. So Daphne ends up living with Miles. It's a short-term solution for their sort of awkward predicament that they've got going on at the moment. Peter and Petra then get engaged. Peter and Petra decide to invite Daphne and Miles to the wedding, which I already find really awkward. So Daphne ends up sort of being like, oh well, actually it's not going to be too awkward for me because I have a boyfriend. And he's like, who's your boyfriend? And she's like, Miles. So Daphne and Miles end up sort of like fake dating to sell it for this wedding that they're going to be going to. It's funny. It's really difficult to explain, but it does sound about there's no way Daphne would start a new chapter by falling in love with her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex. And I just think it's such a fun setup for a book. I love a fake dating trope, especially when it's done right. So I really enjoyed this. Miles is like, to me, it's just not the sort of typical guy that you find in these fluffy romances. Like he's covered in tattoos, he's always smoking weed. Like, he's just not really like any of the other main male characters that I've really read about. And I really like him. I think he's really funny. Like they're really sarcastic with each other. They have such a lovely dynamic, and I think it was pretty much exactly what the other needed during this like difficult time. Like how they bond over their breakup is just so interesting, and like they just sit and get drunk and go and do all these exploring things. So like she's basically saying that she's going to leave within like the next 6 months, and he's trying to give her reason to stay and like show her around the town that she's lived in and not really known much about. And I absolutely loved this story. I highly recommend it. It was such an easy, fun read. So I actually started reading this on the way to New York at the end of May. So this was sort of like my holiday read. I read it a little bit in Central Park and it was just such a fun, easy time. I really enjoyed this book and I definitely recommend it. So I rated this book 4 stars. First Emily Henry book. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to reading the rest of Emily Henry's backlist. The next book that I finished in June was The Right Move by Liz Tumford. Now this is book 2 in the Windy City series. So this one follows Ryan and Indy. So if you've read book 1, there's the main character in that one called Stevie. So Ryan is Stevie's twin brother and Indy is Stevie's best friend. At the end of book 1 in this series, we see Indy sort of going through a bit of a heartbreak. So she finds her boyfriend cheating on her when she gets back from one of her like long haul flights and needs somewhere to go. So Stevie convinces Ryan to let Indy stay in like one of his spare bedrooms. So Ryan he's the captain of the NBA team for Chicago and is very closed off. He doesn't like people in his space. He doesn't trust anybody because he is just so well off and so high up in the team. Like he's one of the best players. He's one of the most well known. So he doesn't let anybody in. He's really closed off. He is sort of like that grumpy sunshine dynamic, I guess. So he just doesn't want to be out, he doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to speak to anybody. Whereas Indy is just this like ray of sunshine. She just constantly wants to be out and on the go. She's such a people person, such a people pleaser. So when Stevie's trying to convince Ryan to let her in, he's just like, no, absolutely not. So they make these like deals and arrangements and stuff, and they make like a contract on the wall of like the rules of her staying and when she needs to be out by, and she has to be putting this much away into savings and all that sort of stuff. This again is another fake dating trope. So they end up fake dating because Ryan has recently been promoted as to captain, and he needs to be showing that he is sort of like better than he is, basically. So they end up making this deal where Indy will show him how to be the perfect book boyfriend and to impress his manager, basically. And so she is going to a wedding for one of her close friends, and she needs a date to that wedding because her ex-boyfriend will be there. So that's sort of the deal that they strike up. So she will be his fake girlfriend so that he can be shown as like a family man and care about more than just his job, basically. And she needs a date to a wedding to impress her boyfriend. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and I absolutely loved this one. I do prefer this one to book one. I love their Grumpy Sunshine dynamic. Indy is just the cutest. She's so sweet and so lovely. But just to let you know that all throughout this book there is sort of conversation about infertility and her struggling to have babies and like freezing her eggs, and I can't remember what it's called, but basically her ovaries and her eggs are really mature, so she doesn't have a lot of opportunity to get pregnant naturally, and she's getting a little bit older, so she's getting worried. So there is a lot of like talk throughout this book about infertility. So if that's something that you don't like or you don't want to read, then definitely avoid this one. But I loved it. I really enjoyed this book. I rated this 4.5 stars, and I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of this series. I have been doing this book on audio instead of reading the physical copies. I always like to have at least one book on the go on audio that I read sort of like to and from work, and if I'm doing any cleaning I'll have it on in my headphones. But I really enjoy this series. I love Liz Tomford's writing, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of these books. We have had a hint of who the next book's going to be about, so it's following, I think, from the setup at the end of this book, Kai, which is a baseball player, but I don't know who his sort of like interest is going to be, so I'm really looking forward to that one. And again, I will probably audio that as well, but I'm really enjoying this book. 4.5 stars from me. The third book that I finished in June was Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. So this is it says dark fantasy romance on the front. I wouldn't personally say that this was a dark romance. I'd say that it's a fantasy romance with darker elements, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a dark romance. But I could just be really twisted, likely a situation here. So this book follows our main character Ophelia. Now, right at the beginning of this book, her mum dies, and her and her sister are having to like perform all these rituals to basically pass on the family magic, which I thought was like a very interesting start to this book and something I didn't see coming, to be fair. Her sister then sort of like vanishes and runs away. She says that she's going to like fix the situation that they're in. And Ophelia thinks that her sister has entered these trials called Phantasma. Now Phantasma is 10 trials, so this is like a trial-based fantasy romance. Ophelia follows her sister into these trials, or thinks that her sister's in there, so she enters these trials, and it's basically they have to complete these 10 trials, and at the end of the trials they are granted a wish. So everybody's in there for their own reasons, everybody is out to win, nobody's helping anybody. Now from levels 1 to 7 you're stuck on the same floor with the same group of people, and then after 7 it all opens up and you can see everybody else. So Ophelia's goal is just to make it to night 7, to get her sister and get out of there. Now during these trials she meets a guy called Blackwell. Now Blackwell says that he will make a deal with her where he will guide her through these trials for his end of the bargain. And now it doesn't say what that is on the back of the book, so I'm not going to tell you, but he basically offers her guidance in order to get her through these trials so she can get her sister and get out. Now during those they obviously spark up a romance, and I really enjoyed this. It is spicy. The trials are very unique. They're all sort of based on, well, there's 10 trials, but a lot of them are based on like the 7 deadly sins. So there's greed, there's lust, there's gluttony. My brain isn't working, but there's like different themes for each trial, and honestly they're so unique and quite brutal. So like there's ones where there's like swinging blades, and you've got to try and like move around this chessboard while all these blades is like swinging around, and you can, if you finish the trial, you can choose whether to help somebody or hinder somebody else, or one of each, and things like that. So like there's a group or a couple of guys in this book that are on her level that are just awful, and there's quite a lot of competition between them, and it's brutal. But again, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a dark fantasy romance. I would just say it's a fantasy romance with darker elements. but I did still really enjoy this book. The spice was really good, the trials were really interesting, it was fast paced, I never really felt bored. You get all the trials, but then you also get like the day-to-day activity as well. There's other things that they're having to do while sitting about waiting for these trials. I found this one really interesting and definitely recommend it. I rated this one 4 stars, really enjoyed it. Well, I feel like this is definitely going better than the last time, but who knows? We're gonna just keep going and pray that this is better than the first time I filmed this video. The 4th book I then read in the month of June was The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood. This is I don't know if she's classed as a YA author, but I'm not entirely sure. But this follows our main character, Olive. Now, Olive is a student within science. I don't know science, I'm not very sciencey at all. But it is a STEM, it's part of like the STEM romance series. So she is a 3rd year PhD candidate. So she is working in like the university and doing all these like sort of reports and stuff. And she is basically sworn off men, doesn't believe in love, doesn't believe in romance, all of that sort of stuff. She used to date a guy called Jeremy. Now, it was a very sort of like platonic relationship. It wasn't like they weren't in love or anything like that. But Jeremy and Olive's best friend, I'm going to say Anne really likes Jeremy, and Olive has said that she is more than okay with them two dating, but she thinks that Anne just finds it really weird. So Olive's solution to this is, well, if I just find somebody to like date, then Anne will know that I've moved on and she'll feel fine with dating Jeremy. So that's what she does. So she says that she's gone out in this date, but instead just goes into the labs and she's just sort of like cracking on with her reports and her jobs and her studies and things. When Anne walks in, so Olive just turns around and kisses the first guy she sees. Now that turns out to be our main male character, Adam. Now Adam is sort of known for being an arse. He's one of the professors at the university, and it basically just stems from there. So they end up again striking up a fake dating situation. So this is the 3rd fake dating situation book that I've had this month. So it's a good job that I really like that trope. And to be fair with you, I think it was done well in all 3 books that I've read. Like, I was a little bit scared when I went into this that this was going to be like another fake dating and I was just going to hate it. But I still really enjoyed it. So again, they sort of strike up a deal because Olive wants Anne and Jeremy to be able to crack on with their relationship and to not be worried about how she's feeling. But Adam's funds have been frozen for his research because the sort of like funding committee think that he's not got any good like roots here and that he's just going to off and leave, so they freeze all his funds. So they strike up a deal where they all fake date so that they can both prove that they're staying, they're okay, there's no issues. Now, I really like Olive's friendship group. So like Anne is such a funny character and she ends up getting them to do the most ridiculous things because she thinks that they're dating when they're not. But it's just like little things that wouldn't be an issue if they both weren't so awkward. So like, for example, there's a scene where like Adam's burning on his back and she's like, well, you just putting some sun cream on, and she's like, it's fine, and he's like, oh no I'm fine, I don't need any sun cream. And I was like, it's not a big deal, like it's your boyfriend, just put some sun cream on his back. And it's just loads of like funny little moments like that where, because Olive is just so awkward, it just makes this really funny, cringy but amusing environment. I will say, I didn't think Ellie Hazelwood was a spicy writing author. But I don't know if that's just my misunderstanding, because when obviously The Deep End came out, there was this big thing about it being like unlike anything she's written. Now I know it's more like kink related stuff in that book, but I think in my head I just assumed that was like a kinky book and a spicy book, and none of her other books were. So when it got to the spice scenes in this like book, I was really shocked. I really enjoyed them, and they went a lot later on in the book and there were only probably like 2 or 3. But it really caught me off guard, but I did really enjoy them. I really like the progression of their relationship in this book. I thought it was really interesting. The 3rd act conflict wasn't just this like petty drama thing either. I really like how Adam sort of stepped up and protected her when she needed it and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to tell you any more than that because I don't want to spoil anything for you, and it's something that isn't really written on the back at all. But I really enjoyed this, and I rated this 4 stars as well. Every book I read this month was written by a new author. Apart from Liz Tom Foot, so 4 of the books I read this month were written by new authors that I've never read from before. It's been a month of like reading new authors, which I've really enjoyed. So the last book that I read was Hooked by Emily McIntyre. Now, I audioed this again and I think I made a mistake in doing that. So This is another dark romance. I don't know if you want to class it as a fantasy or not. It is a Disney retelling, but there isn't any fantasy elements within the book. It's just a Disney retelling. So it's a dark romance, but a Disney retelling, or like a fairy tale retelling. So this is very loosely based off like Captain Hook and Peter Pan. So this follows our main character, James. Now, James is part of like a, how does he word it? He just is sort of like James's organisation, but I think he sort of like runs drugs and things like that. His parents were killed by Peter Michaels. Now Peter has a daughter named Wendy, and one day Wendy comes walking into James's bar and James sees it as an opportunity to get revenge on Peter. So it kind of plays from there. So James ends up sort of like seducing Wendy. They spark up this romance. James's plan is to use Wendy as revenge on Peter, so just to lure her in, break her heart, break her down in front of Peter, and then Peter having to like experience that, and then maybe James eventually killing her. But they spark up this really interesting and spicy romance, so it kind of gets a bit more twisted and complicated from there because James starts to develop these actual feelings. I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed elements of this book. I really liked the retelling elements, like the names and sort of like some of the personality traits and like the clocks and the ticking and things like that. Like I really enjoyed all that, and like pixie dust is the drugs that they run, and I really enjoyed the retelling elements of this. I weren't a lover of some of the darker elements of this book. I don't know how I sit with like dark romances yet, if I'm honest. I've only read a few. I'm still sort of getting to grips with how I feel about them, but I don't hate it. But I do think I made a mistake of listening to this on audio instead of reading the actual book. I think if I'd have read it, I'd have enjoyed it a lot more, but I think because I was audioing it when I weren't fully paying attention and invested, I were getting a little bit lost at times. So I think that's a me problem, not a book problem. I think I just weren't doing it in the right format. I think realistically, after reading the first few or listening to the first few chapters, I probably should have switched to reading the physical book, and I didn't. So I think that's me, that's my fault. That's my doing. But I did still enjoy it. There is a twist at the end that I didn't see coming, and I don't quite know how I feel about it. If you've read it, you'll know what I mean, because they're technically not, but they technically are. And I don't fully know where I stand with that, so I don't know. It's a weird one. But I did enjoy this book. It was fine. I enjoyed it. It's not something that I think I'll remember when I read the next 5 books, or when I get to the end of July and I do July's wrap up, I'll have completely forgot what this one is about, I think. But I did still enjoy it. So I've rated this one 3 stars. So probably my least favourite of the month, but another book that I still enjoyed. And I do want to carry on with the rest of the series, because apparently this is not the worst of the 3, but this is the lowest rated and the one people enjoyed the least. So I am going to continue on with the series anyway, but wasn't a massive lover of this one. So they're the 5 books that I read this month. So I have had a good reading month. I did start 2 other books as well, but I didn't get to finishing those in the month of June, so they'll be on next month's wrap up. But yeah, it's a month of new authors. I've got a lot of new authors under my belt now, and people that I do want to read some more from. Overall, a really good reading month. I did really enjoy the books that I read this month. Like only one of them was one that I went obsessed with, but the others I've really enjoyed. So yeah, let me know what you've read this month. I always love hearing what you guys are reading and what you guys have got going on, so do let me know in the comments below. And I will just give you a quick little overview of these again. Started the month with Emily Henry, funny story, 4 stars. Then to The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford, second book in the Windy City series, obsessed with this, 4.5 stars. Phantasma, a trial-based fantasy romance, and I'm always obsessed with trial-based, so 4 stars for this one. Looking forward to book 2. Intrigued to how they're going to do that as well. Then on to Ellie Hazelwood's Love Hypothesis, really enjoyed this one. Looking forward to reading some more by this author. Again, 4 stars. And then finally Hooked by Emily McIntyre's 3 stars. Did enjoy this one, enjoyed the Disney retelling element. I didn't love the book, so we'll continue on with the series though. That is everything I read for this month. I really hope you're well and that you enjoyed this video. Again, be sure to let me know what you've got going on, what you're reading and things like that in the comments. I always love to be up to date with you guys. Also let me know if you've read any of these, and if you have, did you enjoy them? What were your thoughts on them? And if you've got any other books by these authors that you absolutely love, do let me know what they were as well, because I'm definitely going to be reading more from these guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And as always, my social media, my Amazon wishlist, my Goodreads and my business email are all in the description bar below. I really hope you're well. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.